In a world that often equates leadership with loud voices, big promises, and flashy appearances, there exists a rare kind of influence, one that speaks not through volume but through values, not through noise but through nuance. We are taught to admire the outspoken, the assertive, the ones who dominate the stage. Yet some of the most powerful changes in history have been led by those who spoke softly, walked humbly, and let their actions do the talking. Today I want to take you into that quiet space, a space where leadership is not measured by attention, but by intention, where the strength of character outweighs the strength of personality, where empathy, consistency, and integrity form the backbone of true impact. Because leadership is not about being seen, it is about seeing others. It is not about being heard, it is about hearing. It is not about being known, it is about being remembered for what you stood for when no one was watching. So if you've ever felt that your quiet nature doesn't fit the world's loud definition of leadership, know this. True leadership is not about the noise you make, but the lives you touch in silence. Humility over hype is a powerful but often overlooked principle of effective leadership. In a world where visibility is often mistaken for value, the quiet leader chooses to walk a different path. This kind of leader does not seek to dominate headlines or social media feeds. Their focus is not on personal branding or public applause, but on the work itself, on creating something meaningful, lasting, and impactful. They understand that humility is not about thinking less of oneself, but about thinking of oneself less. It is about placing the mission, the people, and the outcome above personal ego. Such leaders walk into rooms without the need to be the loudest voice. They listen attentively, observe quietly, and speak only when they have something thoughtful to add. Their confidence comes not from showmanship, but from preparation, clarity of vision, and years of discipline. They are often underestimated in a culture that prizes charisma, but they consistently outperform because their actions are intentional, their motives are clear, and their leadership is rooted in authenticity. Humility also enables a leader to connect deeply with people across all levels. Whether it is an executive in the boardroom or a worker on the shop floor, the quiet leader treats everyone with equal respect. This approach builds trust, loyalty, and emotional intelligence into the organization. By not positioning themselves above others, they make room for collective growth and shared purpose. They empower others to speak, act, and lead within their own domains, creating an environment of collaboration instead of competition. In moments of success, the humble leader does not claim all the credit. They celebrate the contributions of others, lifting their teams into the spotlight. This kind of acknowledgement inspires people far more than self-promotion ever could. And in times of failure, they do not look for someone to blame. They take responsibility, learn from the setback, and steer the course with steadiness and grace. This quiet accountability is rare, yet it is the mark of someone who leads from the inside out. Humility also brings a long-term perspective. The quiet leader is not interested in quick wins or temporary glory. They invest in ideas that may take years to bear fruit, knowing that the best outcomes are often the result of patience, integrity, and persistence. They resist shortcuts, even when those around them chase instant results. Because they are not driven by hype, they are not derailed by criticism or praise. Their compass is not popularity, but principle. In choosing humility over hype, the quiet leader sends a silent but powerful message that real influence does not require noise, that transformation can happen without spectacle, and that the most profound leadership is often the most unnoticed. It is this kind of leadership that builds institutions, earns trust, and leaves a legacy, not in the form of fame, but in the form of enduring impact. Impact without noise is a hallmark of quiet leadership, where results matter more than recognition. In a world increasingly shaped by self-promotion, likes, and viral moments, quiet leaders remain focused on substance over spectacle. Their success is not defined by how much attention they command, but by the quiet transformations they bring about through deliberate, thoughtful action. They are the ones who move with intention, working behind the scenes to create systems, solve problems, and nurture people without the need to constantly advertise their contributions. These leaders don't lead by dominating conversations or demanding attention. They prefer to let their work speak for itself. Their influence grows not because they shout the loudest, but because they consistently show up with clarity, purpose, and effectiveness. They believe that if a decision helps the organization grow, or if it improves someone's life, that alone is reward enough. Their fulfillment comes from seeing progress, not from seeing their name in the spotlight. Such leaders prioritize long-term impact. They are not swayed by trends or driven by the need for immediate validation. Instead, they invest their energy into things that last: strong values, healthy work cultures, ethical practices, and innovation rooted in real need. They know that real change is rarely glamorous. It happens in long meetings, quiet sacrifices, difficult choices, and unwavering commitment. It doesn't require a stage or applause. It requires vision, patience, and discipline. Because they do not chase attention, quiet leaders are free from the distractions that often come with ego. They are not constantly calculating how to appear successful. They simply focus on being effective. This allows them to listen deeply, think clearly, and act decisively. When problems arise, they don't rush to defend themselves or blame others. They look for real solutions. They act without waiting for praise. This commitment to substance over visibility allows them to stay grounded and agile in moments of pressure or crisis. Their leadership model encourages others to lead in the same way. By showing that results don't need to be shouted about, they build a culture where performance is more important than presentation. This has a ripple effect throughout the organization. Teams become more focused, less political, and more united in purpose. People begin to value contribution over credit and meaning over show. In such an environment, ideas grow faster, respect runs deeper, and collaboration becomes more genuine. One of the strengths of creating impact without noise is that it builds credibility. People eventually recognize consistency, integrity, and results. They trust leaders who deliver without drama, who stay calm in chaos, and who rise by lifting others. Such trust cannot be forced or faked. It is earned slowly, in moments when no one is watching. It becomes the invisible thread that binds teams and strengthens vision. Quiet leaders may not seek attention, but their impact becomes impossible to ignore, not because they promoted it, but because it worked. Listening before speaking is one of the most profound traits of a quiet leader. It is a practice rooted in humility, discipline, and the understanding that leadership is not about imposing ideas, but about uncovering truth. In a world where people often speak to be heard rather than to understand, the quiet leader creates space for others to express, contribute, and grow. They recognize that wisdom often comes not from having all the answers, but from asking the right questions and being open to perspectives beyond their own. A leader who listens first is not in a hurry to dominate the conversation. They know that true insight often lies beneath the surface, and that rushing to respond can mean missing the deeper message. In meetings, they observe carefully, paying attention not just to words, but to tone, emotion, and intent. They seek to understand the context behind what is being said. This allows them to respond with clarity and relevance, rather than with assumptions or defensiveness. Listening also creates a sense of respect and psychological safety within a team or organization. When people feel heard, they feel valued. They begin to trust the leader, not because they agree with everything, but because they know their voice matters. This trust is essential for innovation, problem solving, and collaboration. It invites honest feedback, diverse opinions, and the courage to speak up, even when it's uncomfortable. The quiet leader cultivates this environment not through grand speeches, but through quiet attentiveness and genuine engagement. By listening first, these leaders often gain access to details others overlook. They learn about challenges on the ground, emotions behind resistance, and opportunities hidden in the margins. They are better equipped to make informed, balanced decisions that reflect the full picture. They don't jump to conclusions or rush to fix things for the sake of appearing decisive. They take time to gather insights, weigh consequences, and act with thoughtfulness. This deliberate pace may seem slow to some, but it leads to better, more sustainable outcomes. In conflict situations, the ability to listen before speaking becomes even more powerful. Quiet leaders do not escalate tension by reacting impulsively. They listen to grievances, consider each viewpoint, and then respond with measured reasoning. This calm presence helps de-escalate emotional situations and brings people back to common ground. Their authority comes not from volume, but from wisdom, not from commanding fear, but from earning respect. Such a leadership style also encourages self-awareness. A leader who listens is constantly learning, not just about others, but about themselves. They refine their thinking, challenge their assumptions, and evolve with time. They do not pretend to be infallible. Instead, they show that real strength lies in being teachable, in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. This balance of silence and speech is what gives their words depth and their presence impact. Where others speak to impress, the quiet leader listens to understand. And when they do speak, people listen. Empathy and respect form the emotional core of quiet leadership. These qualities are not strategies, but values deeply embedded in the way a quiet leader views others and interacts with the world. Unlike leadership styles that rely on control or authority, quiet leaders understand that people are not tools to be used, but individuals to be understood. They do not operate from a place of hierarchy or superiority. Instead, they engage from a place of equality, seeing every individual, regardless of rank or title, as worthy of dignity and attention. Their leadership is rooted in the belief that true influence comes not from fear, but from compassion. Empathy allows a leader to step into someone else's world, to see situations through their eyes, to feel what they might be experiencing. This emotional intelligence informs their decisions and communication. When a team member is struggling, a quiet leader doesn't just look at performance charts or deadlines. They look at the person. They ask questions that matter. They listen without judgment, and they offer support that is meaningful rather than performative. Their compassion isn't loud, but it is real. It is seen in small, consistent actions. A kind word during a tough day, a decision that balances business needs with human realities, or a silence that allows someone else to speak. Respect is what turns empathy into trust. Quiet leaders give others the space to think, to contribute, and to grow. They do not micromanage or overshadow. They understand that leadership is not about having all the answers, but about empowering others to find their own. This respectful approach creates a culture where people feel safe, valued, and motivated to give their best. It removes fear and replaces it with responsibility. People no longer work out of obligation, but out of ownership, because they know their leader believes in them. In boardrooms, a quiet leader listens carefully, even when they disagree. They don't interrupt to assert their opinion or overpower the room with their presence. Instead, they allow others to finish, they consider the argument, and they respond with calm logic and empathy. This creates not only more thoughtful decisions, but a deeper sense of mutual respect. People may not always agree, but they walk away knowing they were heard. And over time, this builds a team culture that values dialogue over debate and connection over competition. Quiet leaders also understand that respect must extend beyond the workplace. Their empathy drives them to see the broader impact of their actions. on society, on communities, on future generations. Whether making a business decision or taking a social stance, they are guided by a moral compass that prioritizes human values. They do not see leadership as a platform for self-interest, but as a responsibility to serve. Their respect for others is not selective or strategic. It is constant and sincere. It doesn't change based on status or convenience. It flows from a deep awareness that every human being deserves to be seen, heard, and treated with care. Consistency and integrity are foundational qualities that define the character of quiet leadership. A quiet leader is not swayed by trends, changing opinions, or the pressures of momentary success. They operate with a clear set of principles that guide their decisions, behaviors, and relationships over time. This consistency builds reliability, and reliability builds trust. People around them know what to expect, not in the sense of predictability, but in the confidence that this leader will act with fairness, honesty, and a long-term perspective. Their values do not shift with the crowd, and their stance is not shaped by the desire to be liked or approved. Integrity, for a quiet leader, is non-negotiable. It is not something to be displayed, but something to be lived. It influences every aspect of how they lead, from how they speak in private meetings to how they make high-stakes decisions under pressure. They do not cut corners for short-term gain or compromise ethics for visibility or recognition. Even when no one is watching, their internal compass remains steady. This is not because they fear being caught, but because they believe that true success means doing the right thing, not just the easy thing. Their consistency also brings calm in times of uncertainty. When organizations face change, crisis, or conflict, people naturally look toward leaders to anchor them. The quiet leader becomes that anchor, not through loud declarations, but through steady presence. Their decisions may be firm, but they are never rushed. Their tone remains composed even when the situation is tense. This steadiness creates a sense of psychological safety among team members. People feel secure knowing that their leader will not react impulsively or unpredictably. This trust allows teams to focus on solutions rather than fear. Such leaders are also consistent in how they treat people. Their behavior does not change based on someone's title, background, or influence. Whether speaking with a junior employee or a senior executive, they maintain the same level of respect and sincerity. This fairness fosters a culture of equality, where everyone feels seen and valued. They do not play favorites or shift loyalties based on advantage. Their words match their actions and their promises are not hollow. Over time, people begin to see them as not only effective leaders, but as trustworthy human beings. In decision-making, quiet leaders apply integrity as a filter. They ask not only what is profitable, but what is right. They consider the long-term consequences of their actions on people, systems, and society. They resist pressure to win at all costs, knowing that short-term victories achieved without principles often come with hidden losses. Their consistency becomes their identity, and their integrity becomes their influence. People may not always agree with their decisions, but they rarely doubt the sincerity or honesty behind them. This rare blend of moral clarity and steady conduct creates a lasting impact that outlives the leader's presence. It becomes the standard others aim to follow, not because they were told to, but because they witnessed the quiet power of ethical consistency. Legacy built on actions is the silent but enduring footprint of quiet leadership. Unlike those who seek to be remembered through titles, awards, or headlines, the quiet leader builds a legacy, not through declarations, but through meaningful decisions and steady contributions over time. Their focus is not on leaving behind a name, but on leaving behind value. Every choice they make, every initiative they take, is guided by purpose rather than personal promotion. They understand that the most powerful impact is often invisible at first, felt in the lives uplifted, the systems improved, and the values passed on through example rather than instruction. These leaders do not aim to be the face of every success. In fact, they often choose to stay in the background, allowing others to shine. They derive fulfillment not from being celebrated, but from watching their teams grow, their organizations mature, and their principles endure long after they have stepped aside. Their influence lives on in the culture they shaped, the standards they set, and the quiet courage they modeled, because they lead with action rather than noise. Their legacy becomes deeply embedded in the very fabric of the organizations or causes they serve. A legacy of action is built through consistency and humility. Quiet leaders don't seek quick wins that look good on the surface. They build slowly, often behind the scenes, putting systems in place that may not be noticed immediately but will stand the test of time. They take on challenges that others avoid, not for recognition, but because they understand the long-term significance. They do the hard work, the work of nurturing trust, resolving conflict, and developing people without needing credit or applause. This dedication plants seeds that grow far beyond their tenure. Such leaders are often remembered not for grand speeches, but for the way they made people feel, the fairness they displayed, and the values they upheld, even when no one was watching. Their integrity in small things becomes as important as their decisions in large matters. They show that the measure of a leader is not in the attention they receive, but in the difference they make in silence. People recall their quiet courage in hard times, their unshakable commitment to what was right, and the quiet strength with which they carried responsibility. Over time, the legacy of a quiet leader becomes more than just a memory. It becomes a model. Others begin to lead differently because they witnessed a different kind of leadership, one based on substance, service, and sincerity. Their influence expands, not through loud campaigns, but through the ripple effect of their example. What they leave behind is not just a story about what they did, but a living culture of how things should be done. That is the true power of legacy, when actions, not words, continue to lead even after the leader is gone. And that legacy, built quietly and consistently, often becomes the most enduring of all. True leadership doesn't always come with a spotlight or a stage. It doesn't seek applause, recognition, or titles. Instead, it flows quietly through the choices we make, the values we uphold, and the way we treat others when no one is watching. Quiet leadership is not the absence of strength. It is the presence of purpose. It is found in humility over hype, in actions over words, in listening before speaking, in treating others with empathy and respect, and in the unwavering consistency that builds trust over time. And most of all, it is a legacy shaped not by noise, but by quiet, deliberate impact that lives on in people, in principles, and in the culture we leave behind. The world does not need more loud voices. It needs more steady hands, calm minds, and quiet hearts that lead with integrity. Because in the end, it is not the leader who shouts the loudest who changes the world. It is the one who serves it with quiet strength and lasting purpose.